Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we're going to be going over part 2 in the series with this Milwaukee M18 Fuel half-inch brushless hammer drill driver. I believe it's a Gen 3 model. We're going to be going over the performance of this drill with these other batteries to see how it compares and stacks up with the rest of the drills on the market. So, stick with us. Alright guys, so in case you missed it in part 1, we thoroughly went over this drill top to bottom, then tested it with this high output CP 3.0 battery, and it got a whopping score, a total performance score of 16.68. It took second place right behind the Makita XPH07, which had 15.58, but it was not enough to beat it out to take the crown for first place. So continuing on with that, let's go ahead and test this drill with this other batteries and see how it stacks up. I hope y'all caught those numbers because those numbers went by really fast. But in case you didn't, we're going to do a recap anyway. So let's go take a look at it. So this Milwaukee 2408 kitted with this XC 5.0 amp hour battery, and just so you know, this 5.0 amp hour battery still does use 18650 cells, okay? So let's go and take a look at the 5/16 inch lag test. First run, 2.55 seconds, peak torque measured 95. Run 2, 2.19, peak torque 98. Third run, 2.18, peak torque 87. It was still able to drive those lags, 6-inch lags on speed 2, so that's great. And you take a run of 3 averages, or average out the 3 runs, and the average comes out to 2.31 seconds with an average of 93.33 of peak torque, right? Let's go take a look at the 1/2-inch lag bolt test. First run, 9.5 seconds, peak torque 349. Second run, 7.42 seconds, peak torque 340. Third run, 7.24 seconds, peak torque 282. And for that test, it did have to drop down to gear 1, but you take an average of the 3 and it comes out to 8.05 seconds with peak torque of 323, okay? Moving on to the auger test. First run, 16.18. Second run, 16.22. It was able to drill that 3/4 inch auger in speed 2, and the average of those runs comes in at 6.20. Now, 1/4 inch masonry test. First run, 6.33. Second run, 5.25. Third run, 6.14. Average of the 3 runs comes in at 5.91. And across all the tests that we did, the peak torque measured was 349 inch-pounds, all right? So this 2804 with this XC 5.0 amp hour battery also weighs in at a whopping 4 pounds, 13.1 ounces, okay? So let's go look at the moment of truth on what the total performance score was with the high capacity 5.0 amp hour battery. And that number comes out to 16.56 seconds, all right? So that number is still not enough to take first place, which is still with the Makita XP-H07 and the 5 amp hour battery, which had 15.58. So this drill with this battery actually comes in right behind it and takes second place, all right? All right, so now moving on to the high output 8.0 battery. And this battery does use 21700 cells, so make sure you keep that in mind. Let's go take a look at the numbers. 5/16 inch by 6-inch lag test. First run, 2.21, peak torque 119. Second run, 2.09, peak torque 96. And the third run, 2.06, peak torque 81. It was able to complete that test on speed 2 and take an average of the 3, 2.12 seconds with peak torque of 98.68 inch-pounds, all right? Moving on to the 1/2-inch by 8-inch lag bolt test. First run, 8.12. Peak torque 469. Second run, 6.52, peak torque 320. Third run, 6.5 with the peak torque of 334. And for that test, it did have to step down to gear 1, but an average of that, the 3 runs comes in at 7.05 seconds with the peak torque of 374, all right? Now, the 3/4 inch auger test, 5.28. For the first run, second run 5.38, and it was able to complete that challenge on speed 2, and the average of the 2 comes out to 5.33 seconds, all right? Moving on to the masonry test, 1/4 inch masonry test actually. Same with all the other masonry tests. First run, 4.47, second run, 6.39, third run, 5.05. Average of the 3 runs comes in at 5.30. The peak torque measured across all those tests with this battery came in right around 649. And the battery kitted, or the drill kitted with that battery, the 8.0 high output battery, weighs in at a whopping 5 pounds, 9.5 ounces, all right? So, taking the total performance number of this drill kitted with that comes in at a whopping 13.95 seconds. Wow, so that's actually really fast, okay? That takes first place, beating out the Makita XP-H07 with the 5 amp hour battery, all right? So now the moment of truth. How does the drill perform if you get it with the high output HD 12.0 battery, right? The biggest battery they make on the M18 platform. So let's go take a look at the numbers. First run of the 5/16 inch by 6 inch lag bolt test. First run 2.20 seconds, peak torque 141. Second run 2.06 seconds, peak torque 135. Third run 2.11 seconds, peak torque 114, and it was able to complete that challenge in speed 2, take an average of 3 runs. The average comes in at 2.12 seconds with a peak torque of 130. Okay, so actually that's very interesting. We're gonna stop right there for a second because the performance of that challenge was the same in terms of average performance-wise between the 8.0 and the 12.0. So that's just something to point out. Moving on to the 1/2 inch by 8 inch lag bolt test. First run, 7.5 seconds, peak torque 448. Second run, 6.47 seconds, peak torque 413. Third run, 6.34 seconds with a peak torque of 340. It did have to complete that challenge on speed 1, and the average of the 3 runs comes in at 6.77 seconds with a peak torque of 400.33 inch-pounds. Wow, that's a lot, right? Moving on to the 3/4 inch auger test. First run, 4.52. Second run, 5.12. And it did have to do that challenge on speed 2, as you would expect, with pretty much all the other batteries. And the average of the 2 runs comes in at 4.82 seconds, all right? Moving on to the 1/4 inch masonry test. First run, 4.37. Second run, 4.5. Third run, 4.48. Average of the 3 runs comes in at 4.45 seconds. And the peak torque measured across all of those tests comes in right around 448 inch-pounds, okay? So that is obviously a big battery. So this drill, kitted with the high output HD 12.0 battery, weighs in at a whopping 6 pounds, 9.1 ounces. That is a heavy combo, okay? So now let's wait for the moment of truth, right? How does this drill perform with the HD 12.0 battery compared to all the other batteries in the M18 lineup, right? So that total performance number comes in at 13.28 seconds. All right, so that combination, this drill and that the HD 12.0 combo takes first place on the leaderboard, beating out pretty much every single drill that we've tested so far. So that is now in first place, followed up by second place by this drill and the XC 8.0 battery. Then third place goes to the Makita XPH07 with the 5 amp hour battery. Then the drill with the XC 5.0 amp hour battery, and then the drill with the high output CP 3.0 battery, right? So that's actually a lot of tests that we did. If you think about it, we really tested like 4 different kinds of setups and all kinds of fun stuff, right? So what can we really say about that? Let's go take a look at the numbers real quick, right? So if you look at it, this high output HD 12.0 battery is actually right around, I would say about 20-ish% performance improvement over the high output, I believe, CP 3.0. And then the XC 8.0 is right around 16% more than the CP 3.0, right? So what downsides or plus sides do you have to gain with that, right? So the plus side obviously is that you get more performance or more raw power out of it, right? The downside is it gets obviously a little bit bigger, taller, bulkier, if you want to call it that, right? And it does weigh in a lot more, right? So for instance, this drill with the CP 3.0 amp hour battery weighed in right around 4 pounds, 8.5 ounces, right? But with the 12.0 amp hour battery, it weighs in at 6 pounds, 9.1 ounces. So that's actually a huge difference in terms of weight. So if you really just need raw power to do whatever it is that you're doing, obviously the 12.0 is the best one kit combo with, because obviously it provides the most amount of power. And then if you just need, you don't need all that power all the time, you're just always using the drill for, light duty stuff or whatever you need to do, right? Then the CP 3.0 amp hour battery is probably the way to go, right? What can we really say about the 3.0 versus the 5.0. The performance number, sure, there was a little bit of difference in terms of the total performance number, but it's really the same if you look at it, right? 16.56 versus 16.68. If you think about it, the 5.0 has really two sets of 5 batteries that are in series, 18650 cells. So if you think about the two sets combined, is it really the same amount of output that it could put out versus one set of 21700 series cells? That's something you could really question, but there isn't too much of a difference between these two batteries versus, you know, these two batteries versus these other batteries. Yeah, there's a huge amount of difference, right? Some of these will have 3 sets in parallel, and some of these will have like 2 sets in parallel and all kinds of fun stuff, right? So not only is there a difference in just the 21700 versus the 18650, but also there's more sets in like parallel, allowing you to get more of that power, right? So the other thing to point out here is on high speed, non-heavy duty applications, you won't really see too much of a difference between these two. Like take for instance the 5/16 inch by 8 inch lag test, right? Both of these the batteries were generally able to provide the same performance number, right around 2.12 seconds per volt with this drill, right? The only real difference that really popped out was when it got to the 1/2 inch by 8 inch lag bolt test, where you saw a huge time difference and peak torque difference between the HD 12.0 and the XE 8.0, right? So what do you really learn from that in case you didn't know already, right? A drill is generally going to provide more power in a more heavy use situation, right? It is a high drain device if you're using it heavily. If you're not using it heavily, in terms of like high torque applications, it's not a high drain device, right? That's why people doing things with like screws and bolts and stuff will either use like an impact wrench or an impact driver, right? Because you're also able to do a lot more driving applications without consuming as much power with that. Anyways, long story short, what can we really say about this drill? This is a great drill, regardless of the batteries aside, right? It's light, it's compact, and it's a whopping powerhouse, right? I mean, look how small or compact this drill is. And if you think about it, it's probably comparable to things that are in a smaller or more compact class, right? Then Milwaukee gives you the option to choose between whichever batteries you need, right? Compact, the higher capacity, the high outputs, and all kinds of fun stuff, right? And it also comes with this handle. So if you are doing any heavy duty stuff, I'll definitely recommend putting that handle on so it doesn't break your wrist. So now let's go ahead and talk about breaking your wrist. So there are some tools currently on the market by some manufacturers where, you know, if it twists, it'll just cut off the power so that way you don't break your wrist. You may feel a little bit of pain, but you probably won't break your wrist. This tool right now currently does not have that. I think maybe in a later generation or whatnot, they'll probably update that, you know, to kind of stay on par or if not be better than the other manufacturers. But other than that, I mean, there really isn't too much you can really flaw or get upset about with this drill, right? I have had other Milwaukee drills in the past, and I think at least 2 of them I had the warranty for whatever reason. One, when you press the trigger, sometimes it just wouldn't come on. One had a chuck issue and all kinds of fun stuff. So I generally have not had the best luck in terms of longevity with this tool, and it wasn't like we abused it or by any means. But the Gen 3 tool, obviously we haven't had any issues with. I'm sure somebody is going to have some kind of issues with it because, you know, there's always going to be some kind of failure rate on, you know, tools that manufacturers make. So, but generally it's considered a good tool, and I'll definitely tell you it is a good tool. So now it's probably a good time to tell you nobody sent us this tool, and we actually went out and bought this tool in a kit compared with some other stuff like the impact wrench or the impact drivers and stuff like that. So this is not a sponsored video. We can say whatever we want. We could probably say whatever you want anyways, but just make sure you keep that in mind. So closing this out, I hope all those numbers and stuff really gave you an idea of what the performance difference is, right? Sometimes performance difference will get up to about 20% with the 12.0 versus the CP 3.0, and then like 16-ish% with the 8.0 versus the CP 3.0. So like I said, hope that gave you some numbers, nectars, and stuff like that that you can compare it with. I know a lot of people just like test stuff right away, and it's just like, okay, well that's great, but you know, how does it compare with everything else, right? So this, as we continue on in this series, we'll continue to test more drills and see how all the other ones stack up. So hope you take the time to leave me a comment and let me know if you want to see some other stuff. But like I said, hope this video helped you guys out. Have a great day, and then we'll see you guys next time.